Writers of the Future contest is a fine one. There's nothing else quite like it in the world. I wish I hadn't published before, because I could have used the training they get here. I think it's a marvelous thing that L. Ron Hubbard has done, and it's the best memorial he could possibly have. When I first heard about the contest, Algis Budrys, who was one of the organizers, was telling me all about it. I thought it was a marvelous idea. Yeah, of course, I got hung with it, but I didn't mind. It was interesting to see what people were writing about and how they were handling new material. So I've been a judge ever since. I'm damn proud of it. The Writers of the Future contest gives them a great deal of confidence, for one thing. Somebody wants to publish something they've written. It's hard enough to write and to get published. This at least offers them an opportunity of having their stories seen very quickly. And some of them have gone on to do very, very well indeed. Oddly enough, although there are many processes between your sending the story off and getting it published, if you mean it from the depth of your heart, that emotion comes across to the reader. And very often you've read a book and it's because the writer himself or herself was not involved enough with the storytelling. That's, I tell people, tell me a story and write it. That's the hard work, putting the bum down in the chair and the hands on the keyboard and doing it. But I've had quite a few people who have actually sat down and done it and then set it off. And a good percentage of them have been published because they meant the story they were writing. Many people come up and say, I have this marvelous story. I said, well, sit down and write it. Oh, I couldn't. I said, why not? But you're published into, I said, it has nothing to do with it. If I tell what the facts of your story, it will not be the story you would write because your involvement makes the difference. And that's true. In one of my first stories, The Ship Who Sang, I used emotion, grief, as a main mechanism behind it. And I can't read the story aloud. I usually have a script. I get somebody else to do the last part because I always burst into tears. And I was doing an interview at one of the British conventions, and the BBC was filming us. And they were right in front of me. And my son was doing the other part, who is now a writer, published writer. And we got to the part where I stopped and let him take over. And I looked over at the cameraman, and they were crying. My golly, that story still is worth something when you can make BBC hardened cameramen cry. I have felt every single story I have ever written. And at one point, the story itself required me to kill two of my great characters, Master Harper Robinson and Ivos, the artificial intelligent voice address system, which is how my people, 2,000 years away from his ordination, if you want to call it, he was able to figure out the linguistic changes between the then and the now. Both had become so important to the inhabitants that they were relying on them instead of their own wisdom, which they had plenty of. So the Avos turned himself off, and Robinson died because there is a time for everything. That I used as the last flicker on the making me do it again. But the tears were streaming down my face because I was killing a marvelous person. But he too knew that the time had come for him to go. But oh Lord, everyone gets mad at me for killing my people, but it's sometimes dramatically necessary. I invent worlds where things can happen that couldn't happen here, and problems that arise that wouldn't happen here, but they are ineluctably, a gorgeous word, tarnished by what is going on in the world around me. I can't avoid that. And every now and then I get off some good cracks. Of course, only people who read science fiction would never get them. I know what goes into writing, and it's hard work. And it is lonely, but oh, the reward when you see your name in the bookshop, that's mine. It's great. There's nothing else quite like it. If there's anyone listening to this who would like to write, I would recommend highly that they finish a story and send it into the L. Ron Hubbard Writers of the Future, because some of them are Writers of the Future.